Good morning. It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday and time to talk
Well,
antiques.
let's do it.
All right. Well, we've got a few very interesting things we're going to talk about. We're going to have a little variety
That's the
today.
spice of life, Ronnie.
That always spice of life, yeah. Interesting story in the Antique Week, I noticed.
About forgeries?
About forgeries, yeah.
Yeah.
We had some experts in New York, even Sotheby's. They were fooled by a Chinese immigrant that was reproducing paintings in his garage.
Well, yeah, but recently the person that found him, he was out doing portraits,
Yes.
in New York. And so they got to talk to him, found out that he also went to school with some of these famous artists and did their style of art.
Right.
And guess what happened?
Yeah.
You know what I've always learned, that anybody that's referred to as an expert is usually somebody that had enough money to get a license for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
That's about
being
right.
an expert, I don't know. I don't want to claim to be no expert because the Ford Museum one time had a chair that they swore was real. It was an old shaker chair.
Uh-huh.
And this guy had deliberately made it. He took it, throwed it out in the ocean, as the surf came in and hit it and the rocks bounced it around, and he did all kind of stuff to it. And finally when he got it to where he wanted it, he sold it to them. But he with all intentions just to fool them.
Yeah.
And he did. Of course he gave their money back, but they paid big money for it, and they said, the experts said, it's real. We want it in our museum.
Yeah.
And he made it.
So how would you like to be that expert?
I'm telling you.
Well, there's a lot of those experts.
So-called experts,
But
yes.
this little Chinese guy, I mean, he did one painting that the people, what they paid $900,000, and then they turned around and sold it at auction, brought $8.3 million.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now we're talking about a forged. But I mean, he had the exact style because he went to the same
He
school.
went to the same art school as that guy.
They said he probably that the museum did not know, but they actually sold up to 40 fakes that they know of. So this guy, once he got caught, guess where he went back to? He took off back to China.
Yeah, and
Now you got the people though that put him up to it that are in serious trouble.
the gallery had been open for over 100 years.
100 years and it shut it down.
Yeah, because of those fakes,
Yeah.
which I thought was very interesting. And
Page that was
25.
Page 25. There's more information on that.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, but well, here's another one. This lady paid $300,000 for a phony, and she thought it was real. $300,000 for something that he probably got less than $1,000 to do.
well, they said to start out with, he just sold them for a few $100s. Sometimes a few thousand, but mostly, just a few $100s.
Okay, that one that brought so much money, the people, the name of it was called Untitled.
Right.
1956. And what happened?
That's the one.
Yeah. They paid $950,000, the art gallery did, and then they turned around and sold it to that person for 8-point-something million. But the story was that, what was it, Ronnie, that some...
That it came from a family collection. The guy had died, and the son was selling off the paintings.
Yeah.
And what got them suspicious is there were so many of them, coming to market, at one time, and there's several lawsuits.
I'll tell you something that amazed me this week is the money that was raised for that family up in. Was it Winchester?
No, it's
Hillsborough.
Yeah.
76,000.
There was a bunch of people. I was involved in that. It took us 5 hours to sell all the stuff. And when I left, at 11 o'clock, we sold our last item, and they had raised $76,000. But somebody, I was at Duck River paying a light bill, and they said it was over 80 now.
Wow.
But we auctioned. Of course, I just worked the floor, and we had a lot of good B.B. Brown and several different auctioneers, Joe Orr, several different ones. They really did a good job. I mean, they had a lot of stuff, and
y'all started early too.
Well, we started right on the dot at 6
Well, I
o'clock.
had a lady.
I mean, that's a 5-hour auction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a lady call me at home and ask me if I had sold my dad's guitar. And I said, no.
No, but they had a picture of your dad up there with a signed guitar.
Well, the signed guitar I had purchased, well, I hadn't purchased it. Somebody purchased it, and I took it to Nashville and got all these autographs on it.
Yeah.
And got a bunch of stuff for this child. She was having a heart valve replacement. And the little girl's mother, just as sweet and humble as she could be. So, anyway, that person who bought it at the first auction donated it to this bunch.
Yeah,
and my son ended up buying it.
Well, it brought over 400, didn't it?
Yeah, my son bought it.
I tell you what, we saw some. That was a knife that this gentleman made. He works for the sheriff's department, and it brought $750. But it
Wow.
was the prettiest knife. I mean, and this guy,
I heard somebody talk about
he's
that.
got a homemade forge. You know, he's just. But he really knows how to make knives. And of course, there was two. All auction is just two people, really.
Well, I didn't mean
Two
to get
people.
us off the subject,
Well,
but that to me was just mind blowing. $76,000.
Well, it's kind of not off the subject, 'cause since your dad actually had a guitar there signed and stuff, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
still antique.
Well, Pam Tillis' name was on it. There was quite a few different people.
Well, it brought.
And Becky Buller had helped me get a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff done too. Now,
Becky's a sweetheart.
Oh, Becky's a doll. She is.
Well,
I don't want to tell her that though.
Yeah.
She might be listening.
Anyway, back to the forgery part. It just goes to show you, they counterfeit money. I mean, anything that there's money in, people are going to
Somebody's gonna
Somebody-
forge it.
Yeah, somebody's going to try to take advantage. Now, like I said, this one guy did it just to prove that those experts weren't really experts, and
Yeah.
he proved it
From
because
300
they actually bought that chair and stuck it in the museum like it was real, and they really thought it was.
From 300,000 to 8 million. Yeah, that's a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But the actual painter only got less than a few $100
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
But he took off back to China.
He was a real class one.
Yeah.
They're still wanting him back over here. We're going to talk about some old radio. We're going to talk about radios today. We're
Yeah.
going to talk about some the old TVs, old computers, video games, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Old electronic devices.
I still got all them.
Well, if you do, now I'm telling you, you've got some serious money because a lot of that stuff is really bringing good money now, and there's still a lot of it out there. You know, that's something that people just don't go for every day.
I'll tell you what,
you know,
take
like
a
the old
crane to
computers.
take a crane to pick them old TVs up.
Yeah, well, most of those TVs are not worth much.
No,
It's the
no.
earlier stuff, you know, the
Yeah.
40s and the 50s stuff that has a real small screen.
Right.
You've seen them.
Yeah.
Ronnie, that you was out in the public and somebody asked you a question about signs. Now, what was that question?
Yeah, and I was gonna ask you about that because I didn't have a good answer for him. He asked me what I thought about investing in reproduction signs.
Well, here's my answer to that, and I've had several people ask me those kind of questions. Like the stuff at the Hobby Lobby, I don't think that'll ever gain any value at all. You know, and
Stuff that there's millions
of pieces.
Right.
I mean, they're talking about back to China.
Right.
They're printing that stuff by the zillion.
Yes.
Now, the Coca-Cola companies, the gas companies, they have authorized a few limited edition, like 2,500 or 250. I think those signs eventually, they'll make money.
Yeah,
Those because those are actually.
There's not that many of them.
And they're real. I mean, they are
Right.
authorized by the company. Now, they're not the oldest, but they're a reissue that the company actually said, let's do it. You know, it's made well. And it's numbered, and you know which one yours is. It's like the Star Trek, when they had done the photo of the first cast.
Right.
They did a limited run. And those Star Trek pictures that are signed by those cast is bringing a lot of money now.
Of course they are.
Yeah. Now, here's another thing, and this is not a reproduction, but it's a lot of signs, whether it be gas, oil, soda, were actually done on wood, where artists done it. Coca-Cola paid people to go around and paint Coca-Cola signs on buildings.
Right, I've seen some
Yeah.
where they've tore those siding off, and
Yeah.
and I've seen signs.
But
on them.
also they paid people to do some things on wood, which are
That's something that's
they're-
movable.
yeah, and they're limited. They was authorized by the company. Those signs will bring money. Now, There is a difference. There is a guy, if everybody remembers Andy Warhol when he done the soup can, and it was a big deal.
Right.
He lived in New York, and he was a famous artist. Well, there's a guy, Walter Brenner's great-grandson, who does metal art. And when I say metal art, he does signs. But he actually does, he might do 10 signs, he might do 15, or he might do 4. But they look just like the original.
You can't hardly tell the difference.
Yeah, I remember him.
If you didn't know
I
it.
personally think that he'd be a good investment. You know, not only does his signs look good, it's not like somebody printed 1,000 of them or a million of them.
And these are absolutely superior quality.
And he is, remember I told you the story about the guy that tried to fool the Ford Museum? You know, about the chairs.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Clint actually, he did a sign one time of a sidewalk sign of a Coca-Cola around 1900 piece. And there was a place up in Kentucky, a museum up there. You know, everybody knows what they're doing, right? Mm-hmm. Well, he actually fooled them. He fooled them that sign was real.
That's saying something.
But he'll tell you up front, you know, he's a very honest person. He's not trying to
deceive anybody.
No,
he's telling you what you're getting.
He's an artist, and he likes to do metal art, and that's what signs are. Signs are art, and they were designed to sell the product. I mean, that's the whole thing. But I think his signs, his limited type signs he does, are going to be a real good investment. And, you know, when Andy done the soup can, everybody's, you know, what about it? No big deal. But look how big a deal it is. I got one.
It really is a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Uh-huh.
I paid a lot of money for that soup can, and my wife still don't want to talk about it.
And she throwed it at you a few times.
Yeah, she's scared to throw it, afraid to.
Better not give her no idea of that.
Well, start looking them up, and she'll get over that.
Well, and I think that Clint Clarnay is the gentleman's name. This Walter Brenner's great-grandson. And he lives in Tullahoma, and he is an artist. I mean, that's all you can say about him. He does good work, and his artwork will be a good investment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Will the zillion signs that you go to Hobby Lobby? No.
No,
but they'll patch a hole for you or make a garage look good.
Yeah.
With that, let's take a break.
All right.
We got to get started on some of these radios and stuff.
Yeah, we've had too much sideline.
Do you need a part for your car that the dealer just wants too much money for? Well, bring your toolbox and pull the part yourself for huge savings at the CFC Auto Salvage Pick and Pull on Highway 55 between Tullahoma and Manchester. No walking through waist-high weeds here. All of our vehicles are located in our graveled parking lot, up on blocks with room to work. We stock hundreds of cars and trucks, foreign and domestic, new and old, with new vehicles added weekly. You can even search our entire vehicle inventory online. And if your old vehicle gives up the ghost, bring it by. We offer top dollar for your salvage vehicle. Open to the public 7 days a week until dark, so there's plenty of time to come by. That's CFC Auto Salvage Pick and Pull.
John Hirschman. I'm one of the original 6 owners of P&H Rentals. Started the company 30 years ago when we saw a need for individual, construction, industrial, and commercial storage. We have trailers and containers for lease and sell. Our physical location is 2947 Old Manchester Highway, Tullahoma, Tennessee. My phone number is area code 931-273-4252.
We would like to thank Dr. David Florence for supporting Let's Talk Antiques. See Dr. Florence at 804 Kalon Street in Manchester for all of your medical needs. Call 728-5522 for your appointment today. Most insurances accepted.
The Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester has been voted as having the best hamburgers in Manchester. Hometown atmosphere, historical memorabilia, and of course those great burgers, salads, chicken, and so much more. It's the Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester. Call in orders at 728-4452. You can also order at the convenient outdoor curb service. Hamburgers are made the old-fashioned way at the Jiffy Burger, Manchester's finest hamburgers. Open 7:30 until 9, Monday through Saturday.
Madeline's Antiques and Uniques at 6107 Murfreesboro Road in Manchester has been helping collectors find just the right thing since 2008. With 40 quality dealers and a constantly changing inventory of collectibles from the 1800s to the present, they have many unique items in the store and new things coming in daily. Are you looking for the perfect lamp or clock to finish your collection? A vintage lunchbox from your childhood? Well, you can find that plus any number of other unique items in their huge building. With their easy access off I-24, they meet many travelers from around the world and just around the corner that come to buy and sell antiques, or just to stop and have a free cup of coffee and a cookie while browsing around the store. Come visit owner Madeline Kemp and travel back in time at Madeline's Antiques and Uniques. So many memories.
All right, we're back, and you ready to start on vintage radio?
I'm ready to start on radios. I was going to tell our listeners a little bit about the old radios and just a little trivia. I'm not going to get into detail because there's so much. You know, radio's not something that one man invented. Radios is something that it took several different inventions, you know, to put together to
make the radio.
Right.
What
You
is the
started out
Crosley?
with the Marconi, the wireless, you know.
Would the Crosley brand be one of the first, maybe?
Well, now that I can't tell you about. David's going to tell you about some of the old
Crosley
ones,
is,
but
earlier.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just say that in 1900, a Brazilian priest named Roberto Landau de Moura, he transmitted the first human voice wirelessly, according to the newspaper Journal de Comercio on June 10th, 1900. And he conducted the first public experiment on June 3rd, 1900, in front of journalists and the General Council of Great Britain, C.P. Lupton, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, for a distance of approximately 5 miles. Now, in June 1912, Marconi opened the world's first purpose-built radio factory at New Sunset Works in England. Now, the first radio program was broadcast August the 31st, 1920, by station 8MK in Detroit, Michigan, which survives today as known as format station WWJ under the ownership of CBS. The first college radio station began broadcasting on October the 14th, 1920 from Union College in New York under the personal call letters of Wendell King, who was an African-American student at school at the time. 1955, the newly formed Sony company, now they introduced the first transistorized radio. It was small enough to fit in your vest pocket and powered by a small battery, and it was durable because it didn't have any vacuum tubes in it. You know, vacuum tubes have to be cooled. So over the next 20 years, the transistors, you know, of course, they replaced, you know, the vacuum tubes. And so we got to the transistor radios. You know, I remember when I was a kid, and, you know, my first little transistor radio I ever got, you know.
Well, in the 60s, that's what we got one time. I remember mine just like the...
We had to put it together.
It was black. No, mine was together, but it was like...
They sold little kits.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I enjoyed that.
Yes,
sir.
Well, mine was already together, and it cost about $4, and it was black and chrome, just a small, about a little bit larger than a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
And it was in a leather case, and I thought, boy, well, how neat is this? It was AM only, of course.
Right.
But it was a transistor radio. Back then, in the early 60s, all the kids wanted one.
Yeah, well, everybody had because you could take it with you.
Stations gave them away.
Oh,
in the
they
shape
did?
of gas pumps.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all of them. Sinclair and all of them.
Cubs play at night.
I have a
Yeah.
Listen to the Cubs play.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
a little Coca-Cola radio at the house.
Yeah. I mean, that turned out to be a real marketing piece, you know, for advertisement. The giveaways and the sales, you know, if you purchase so much gasoline, they give you one of those nice little radios.
Yes, sir.
So what we know is that 1912, when Marconi started the first purpose-built factory, you know, that's when you want to go back looking for radios, you
Yep.
know. Wouldn't it be nice to have one of those?
Yes, sirree.
And you found us some good radios?
Well, I found some completed auctions. Did you have some too?
No, I worked on the computers.
Well, before
And the
I
video
talk about
games.
this, I remember talking to a gentleman in Tullahoma, and they had a radio station in their 30s and it was, you know where Daddy Billy's is? It was across the street. You're standing at Daddy Billy's, and you cross the railroad track, and over to the left, there's a row of nice big homes there. And this radio station was upstairs in one of those homes. Mr. Couch told me that.
I said it was that.
Well,
Yeah, Mr. Couch knew everything when it come to Tullahoma. Well, okay, here we go. Here's a vintage 1930s or 40s. You know, it's got a slash. Green marbleized Bakelite Emerson. It's a tube radio. Brought $7,433 with 41 bids.
a lot of interest in that one.
Here's a ham tube radio like you was talking about.
Right.
Like Ray was talking about.
Yeah.
And this
those
is
tubes.
1971, though. This is a little bit newer than what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It had 16 bids and brought $5,500.
Wow.
Here's the Art Deco vintage tube. It's another one of those Bakelite, which is a type of plastic, you know. So people that don't know what Bakelite is, like plastic, but you could add like it marbleized. It looks like marble, you know. The case does, but it's really just
plastic.
a form of plastic.
It's an early form of plastic.
Yeah, $3,404 that little baby brought. Here's a 1939 Motorola. It's a Deco style. It brought $3,316. Now, some of our listeners might have a valuable AM radio.
That's what I was thinking. You know, I was going to say these radios are everywhere out there.
Well, this
Sitting out here in the hall.
23
I don't know
bids.
what it is.
Yeah.
My mother has one sitting in her bathroom.
Here's a
that
here's a
I gave her years ago.
A Western Electric. It had 42 bids. Look at that thing.
That is.
And it's got
Is that a cabinet
yeah,
that it's in?
The door's actually open, and it shows the knobs. You know, it's not that tall. It probably looks like it's about 20-something inches high, and maybe almost a square, maybe 24 by 24 or something. But it's got wood doors and wood top, wood base. But this little unit with 42 bids brought $3,049.
And that was a Western Electric brand.
Here's a Zenith, a Walton model, $2,950, 38 bids. Now here's a kind of unique one.
Yeah, that looks like a globe.
It's made by B&F, and it's a Searchlight Depression era, and it looks like it's round, and it's got a dial in it and a speaker, but it kind of looks like a Searchlight, you know, like you'd see in World War II. Now this little baby brought $2,801 with 27 bids. Okay, here's another one, a T3 vintage tube Art Deco radio, and this is the wooden one. It brought $2,495.
Now, when we talk about the Art Deco stuff, are we talking about the 50s and 60s?
Yeah, in the 40s, you know. Really, the 40s and 50s is where you get a lot of that Art Deco type stuff. Here's another one, $23.75, and here's a taller one. This is almost like a console, Ray. You was kind of talking about a later model console. This here is a Magnavox, and it's a Concert Grand Tube Stereo. Now this has got tubes in it, of course. It's the Holy Grail, they say, of the tube consoles. Holy Grail. 39 bids, $21.59.
And what brand is that again?
Magnavox.
Magnavox.
Yeah.
Concept.
That Magnavox,
Oh,
that name just always stood out to me.
A concept. You know, that's probably something that wasn't produced.
All right, here's a neat one. It's Atwater and Kent. And matter of fact, the station here's got one of those speakers here now. And it is a 1920s. It's a Model 5, and they call it a breadboard radio. $1,901 and 8 bids on it. Here's a kind of neat one, 1950s, and it's a Majestic model. It's Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. And it's got Rudolph with his red nose.
That's neat. That was probably sold during the holidays.
$1,895. And let me see what else we can.
There's a nice one.
Oh, here's another antique Echo AD65 round Bakelite radio, Art Deco again. $1,397 with 35 bids. Let me see. There was here's a kind of a neat one. It's a bullet. They call it a bullet radio. It's kind of a rectangle, but on one end it's rounded off like the shape of a bullet. You know, and it brought $1,425. It's butterscotch. Now look at that one there.
That is nice. Kind of reminds you, of a jukebox, the
Yeah.
way that's made on the top.
Yeah, and I'm just scrolling through here to see if I can find any more unique ones. Oh, here's a good one. Here's a Hopalong Cassidy one.
Oh, gosh.
I think a lot of people remember the Hopalong Cassidy radios.
One of my heroes.
Oh, David would have been all over that if he'd have seen that option.
Here's 26 bids at $1,025 for Hopalong. So that kind of tells you a little bit about these radios. Some radios are valuable. Some people might have a radio that's real valuable.
Yeah, you never know which one it's going to be.
Here, look at this one here. It's a 1925 Art Deco. They call it Egyptian Revival figural, and it's like the Sphinx.
That's neat.
$977 for that little baby.
Got a little light right in the middle of it.
Yeah. Oh, here's a neat one. On air broadcast light. $912. We need one of them. 35 bids, and with that, let's take a break.
All right.
John Hirschman. I'm one of the original 6 owners of P&H Rentals. Started the company 30 years ago when we saw a need for individual, construction, industrial, and commercial storage. We have trailers and containers for lease and sell. Our physical location is 2947 Old Manchester Highway, Tullahoma, Tennessee. My phone number is area code 931-273-4252.
The Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester has been voted as having the best hamburgers in Manchester. Hometown atmosphere, historical memorabilia, and of course those great burgers, salads, chicken, and so much more. It's the Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester. Call in orders at 728-4452. You can also order at the convenient outdoor curb service. Hamburgers are made the old-fashioned way at the Jiffy Burger, Manchester's finest hamburgers. Open 7:30 until 9, Monday through Saturday.
Madeline's Antiques and Uniques at 6107 Murfreesboro Road in Manchester has been helping collectors find just the right thing since 2008. With 40 quality dealers and a constantly changing inventory of collectibles from the 1800s to the present, they have many unique items in the store and new things coming in daily. Are you looking for the perfect lamp or clock to finish your collection? A vintage lunchbox from your childhood? Well, you can find that plus any number of other unique items in their huge building. With their easy access off I-24, they meet many travelers from around the world and just around the corner that come to buy and sell antiques, or just to stop and have a free cup of coffee and a cookie while browsing around the store. Come visit owner Madeline Kemp and travel back in time at Madeline's Antiques and Uniques. So many memories.
We would like to thank Dr. David Florence for supporting Let's Talk Antiques. See Dr. Florence at 804 Kalon Street in Manchester for all of your medical needs. Call 728-5522 for your appointment today. Most insurances accepted.
Need a part for your car that the dealer just wants too much money for? Well, bring your toolbox and pull the part yourself for huge savings at the CFC Auto Salvage Pick and Pull on Highway 55 between Tullahoma and Manchester. No walking through waist-high weeds here. All of our vehicles are located in our graveled parking lot, up on blocks with room to work. We stock hundreds of cars and trucks, foreign and domestic, new and old, with new vehicles added weekly. You can even search our entire vehicle inventory online. And if your old vehicle gives up the ghost, bring it by. We offer top dollar for your salvage vehicle. Open to the public 7 days a week until dark, so there's plenty of time to come by. That's CFC Auto Salvage Pick and Pull.
We're back.
Right.
And we're going to talk about...
Have we talked enough about radios?
We've talked enough about radios. We're going to talk about TVs, but before we do, I have a little something that people probably don't know. I thought was interesting when I was doing my research on that in 1947, AT&T, they commercialized the mobile telephone service from its start in St. Louis in 46. AT&T then introduced mobile telephone service to 100 towns and highway corridors by 1948. Now, mobile telephone service was a rarity at that time, with only 5,000 customers placing about 30,000 calls each week. Because now, only 3 radio channels were available. Now, with only 3 radio channels being available, that would mean that only 3 people could talk at a time. You know, so it wasn't something that was widespread like mobile phones are today. The advanced mobile phone system, analog mobile cell phone system, developed by Bell Labs, that was introduced in '78, and that had much more capacity. But now, here's what I thought. The earlier phone service I was telling you about was, I guess for the time, that was pretty expensive. It was $15 a month, and you paid 30 to 40 cents per local call. Now, in today's dollars, that's like $176 a month and $350 to $475 a call.
Wow.
There's nothing on eBay I can find on it.
Yeah.
Well, I remember in the early 60s, probably about 66, that Tommy Driver had one of those mobile phones in his car. And I thought, how cool is that? That's the first one I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And when you opened his trunk up, he had a bunch of stuff in the trunk that worked that radio. I mean,
Yeah, they just worked off of radio signals, and which is they still do today, but they're digital, and you know there's more bandwidth.
Well, he had a trunk full of stuff just to do that. But I thought, you know, that's pretty cool. Be able to sit in your car and make a phone call.
Yeah.
I mean, that's way before any.
Even the old bag phones.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
had one of them one time.
Yeah. In '63, color television was being broadcast commercially. Though not all broadcasts or programs were in color, the first radio communication satellite, Telstar, it was launched in the 60s, and the U.S. long-distance telephone network began to convert to a digital network, employing digital radios for many of its links. Now, the thing about in '75, let's see. No, we don't want to talk about them right now. But these television, you know, they started out in black and white, and they only had so many lines. And I think 600.
Now, the lines is what makes up the picture, right?
I think 656 lines became a standard by that time, and they couldn't broadcast the color because they had started working on color as soon as they did black and white, but they couldn't broadcast the color because of bandwidth limitations. You know, they only had so much of the bandwidth spectrum available, and that's more information. So the color ones started coming out in '63, like I said, and the color wasn't all that great, you know, because they could have the bandwidth limitation. They could have made it better back then. It could have been high definition back then, but
It could have been.
they just didn't have the spectrum. Yes, sure could. You found us some old television?
Yeah, but now these first TVs, was that? Now they were analog, right? They
were called some of them were called mechanical, some of them were called electronic, you know, digital. You've had several generations of them, of the televisions, and now the very first ones they came out with, from the 1800s through the early 1900s, you know, they were working on the different components, you know, for this. All this goes back to radio. You know, we start out with telegraph, then radio, they transmit voice, and they learn how to transmit pictures, and they could transmit like silhouettes, a silhouette of somebody, but not a whole picture, because they didn't have that many lines, you know,
so
on the screen.
To make the real picture.
Yes, you had to have more and more and more, which is more definition, and so as time went along, you know, of course, you know, they got better and better and better at it.
Well, I know that when the early jukeboxes come out, I think like 1935, Wurlitzer come out with a jukebox. They actually used old radio cabinets that they had in stock to make that jukebox.
To make those
So I wonder
jukeboxes,
if
yeah.
they used some old radio cabinets. Well, I guess they did for TV.
For TVs, yeah. Okay, you used to get the ones that, you could open it up and there'd be a TV there and there'd be a radio on the top
Yes, sir.
and they might have a record player in them.
But,
Yeah.
but also, they actually had a TV that had a big projection mirror. It had a small
Yes.
picture, and then they projected on a mirror, didn't he? That's some of the early.
Yeah, that was some of the earlier stuff. And at the time, that was the way to go. But nowadays they don't have, they're LCDs.
Well, I remember, back again. Of course, I'll be 66 here in April. But I remember in the 60s when we had a TV, and then something happened to it, and here we are, kids. And we had enough sense. We opened the back of it up, and of course it had tubes.
Right.
We could see one of the tubes wasn't burning, so we just pulled the tube out, rode to town, got a tube, and it just so happened, that was what was wrong with it. Stuck the tube back in, it started playing.
People would stick them too close to the wall. They couldn't get no air. The
but
things
I
would get
guess
hot.
that's probably a lot of high voltage. We're talking about 10 or 12-year-old kid ought not be reaching in there and
Shouldn't.
working on the TV.
No. and especially the
plugged.
tubes.
Yeah.
The tubes took high voltage
Yeah,
now.
and so radio same way though. They were tube type, and transistors I guess must have been late 60s, early 70s when they really got real popular, I guess, to replace the tubes.
Yes, sir. Yes, we were saying.
And the everybody remembers how big the picture tube was on those TVs.
Oh, God.
And how heavy.
Yes.
Now you can go to.
You can get a hernia from picking up one of these televisions
Yeah.
now.
Oh, these
But
things now they don't weigh nothing.
But they had.
Oh, I
they
know
had
the new
nice,
ones.
fancy cabinets. I mean,
Yeah.
they were. I mean.
They
The
were
cabinets
furniture.
Themselves was yes,
They were a piece of
high dollar
furniture.
They look beautiful.
Yeah.
But now you can go to a store wherever and you can buy a 40-inch TV and you can actually carry it out yourself.
Very easily.
Real thin. I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 inches thick.
Yeah.
I saw one at Walmart the other day.
Or like, thicker than a sheet of glass.
Well,
Okay, so here he's talking about one being no thicker than a sheet of
I
glass.
remember it hadn't been too long ago. I bought one that it took me and you and another guy, and it was all we could do to get it off the truck.
I'm telling you, I wish you hadn't bought that thing.
I do too.
It was heavy.
Walmart
That thing
the other
about
day,
broke my
50 or
back.
60 inch one. I can't.
Yeah.
No, it's a big old thing for $151.
Yeah, and but the weight of it,
Yeah.
you take just the picture tube in that thing that Ronnie bought, you could probably buy 10 TVs wouldn't weigh as much as that just the picture tube.
Well, yeah,
That was a monster.
it was.
And you couldn't use it for a boat anchor because how could you shove it off the boat? It was heavy.
Yeah,
And we're not talking that long ago. We're talking about early 90s.
Yeah,
I
it
guess,
hasn't been that long ago. We're talking about 99.
Yeah, and still had those heavy TVs.
Still had those
Well, how
heavy
come
TVs.
some of them? I know there's probably different qualities, but what makes one sell for $150, same size that one costs $1,200?
I think it's all about marketing, Ray.
You think it's what it is? I don't know anything about
It's
it.
about like a Cadillac and whatever,
Well, you see when you get books from in the mail, they'll have different qualities of them. And what's going on here?
How much time we got, Keith, before we take a break?
5 minutes.
Oh, we
But,
got 5
you know,
more. We're going to take a look at some of these.
Yeah, the thing is, the TVs, used to be, like David said, like a piece of furniture.
They were furniture.
They were
Yeah.
gorgeous. A lot of them.
And
were.
radios, too, though.
Yes.
I was talking to Sam York about that the other day, and he was telling me, he said, "Well,
That's why you don't
get
have
out of business." He said, "Well, no way that you could buy one cheaper and you could fix it."
Well, nowadays they're just computer monitors, and
Yeah.
they plug into a box, and that's it. You're not buying a complete system.
Yeah.
You're buying a monitor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something. He's right. If you had an older TV, it wouldn't be worth your trouble to even get it
No.
fixed because of the labor.
Right.
Not counting if you had the parts already.
Right.
If you had the parts. Just the labor on that. And everybody that's listening to this show knows that repair work is not cheap nowadays.
No.
Not, whether it be, heat pumps or TVs or
Anything.
Anything,
anyhow.
that's right.
yeah, it's expensive. So they've got it down where it's a throwaway. Yeah, those
And
TVs,
that's what they are.
they're throwaway.
Yeah.
Not only them, refrigerators, washers, dryers. They don't make those things. I mean, you can fix. There's people that can still work on washers and dryers and refrigerators, but they got a lot of those components in them too now.
Yeah. I'm
gonna tell you something, Ronnie. Now, a side-by-side refrigerator is still not as heavy as some of those older,
Oh, I know.
small
Yeah.
refrigerators. They won't weigh as much. The side-by-side, the big one, won't weigh as much as one of them smaller, older.
Yeah.
And you said something about, I looked at some completed auctions on some of these TVs. Mm-hmm. Okay. Predicta, that Philco Predicta, that must be a one that everybody wants. And it said it's on a barber's post type stand.
Yeah.
And
That's neat.
it brought $725. It was $19.59. Here's another one, another type of the same kind of TV by Philco. It's 50s, but it's not on the barber pole type stand. It's just on like a flat base.
It's a tube sitting on a rectangular base.
Like a radio, sitting on top of a radio.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. It brought $510 with 32 bids. Now here is a FADA model $799 television receiver TV set and image projection unit. Now this is an older piece with a real small screen. It don't look like that screen is what, maybe a 6x6 or
Yeah,
something?
maybe.
Brought $475.
And it said it's a projection type.
Mm-hmm. Here's a 16-inch, another one of those Philco ones. Brought $329. Here's a 1948 RCA Victor model 8TS30, and let me see. That baby brought $275. It don't look no bigger than a radio.
Yeah, it doesn't look
When
like
I
it
say
has
radio,
over a 5 or 6 inch screen on it
I
either.
think the radio would probably be what, 20 inches?
Maybe, yeah.
By about 10?
Yeah.
10 by 20 or something? Inches, not.
And that one under looks smaller than that.
Now here's one that's kind of rare. They said it's got a screen magnifier. Remember we was talking about that?
Right.
Okay. Now this one brought $295. Let's see if there's anything else here that catches y'all's eye while I'm trolling through here. Here's another 49 model, Motorola 7-inch.
7-inch screen.
$150. Here's a 48 Hallcrafters classic television set, model 505. Brought $199.95, 2 bids. And let's see here. Here's another one of those, a T54 window, and it brought $199. So some of the TVs, they're not by no means as expensive as the old radios.
No, the radios are bringing more money than the old TVs, it looks like.
Yeah. Well, that's it on my TV.
All right, how much time have we got left? We got enough time
let's take
to...
a break.
Okay.
Madeline's Antiques and Uniques at 6107 Murfreesboro Road in Manchester has been helping collectors find just the right thing since 2008. With 40 quality dealers and a constantly changing inventory of collectibles from the 1800s to the present, they have many unique items in the store and new things coming in daily. Are you looking for the perfect lamp or clock to finish your collection? A vintage lunchbox from your childhood? Well, you can find that plus any number of other unique items in their huge building. With their easy access off I-24, they meet many travelers from around the world and just around the corner that come to buy and sell antiques, or just to stop and have a free cup of coffee and a cookie while browsing around the store. Come visit owner Madeline Kemp and travel back in time at Madeline's Antiques and Uniques. So many memories.
The Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester has been voted as having the best hamburgers in Manchester. Hometown atmosphere, historical memorabilia, and of course those great burgers, salads, chicken, and so much more. It's the Jiffy Burger on the Hillsborough Boulevard in Manchester. Call in orders at 728-4452. You can also order at the convenient outdoor curb service. Hamburgers are made the old-fashioned way at the Jiffy Burger, Manchester's finest hamburgers. Open 7:30 until 9, Monday through Saturday.
Need a part for your car that the dealer just wants too much money for? Well, bring your toolbox and pull the part yourself for huge savings at the CFC Auto Salvage Pick and Pull on Highway 55 between Tullahoma and Manchester. No walking through waist-high weeds here. All of our vehicles are located in our graveled parking lot, up on blocks with room to work. We stock hundreds of cars and trucks, foreign and domestic, new and old, with new vehicles added weekly. You can even search our entire vehicle inventory online. And if your old vehicle gives up the ghost, bring it by. We offer top dollar for your salvage vehicle. Open to the public 7 days a week until dark, so there's plenty of time to come by. That's CFC Auto Salvage Pick and Pull.
My name's John Hirschman. I'm one of the original 6 owners of P&H Rentals. Started the company 30 years ago when we saw a need for individual, construction, industrial, and commercial storage. We have trailers and containers for lease and sell. Our physical location is 2947 Old Manchester Highway, Tullahoma, Tennessee. My phone number is area code 931-273-4252.
We would like to thank Dr. David Florence for supporting Let's Talk Antiques. See Dr. Florence at 804 Kalon Street in Manchester for all of your medical needs. Call 728-5522 for your appointment today. Most insurances accepted.
Yeah, and keeping with what we're talking about here, we were going to talk about some of the video games, you know, and because that's a big thing now, you know. You went from having the old arcade style games to the little home boxes,
Which was a big deal.
You know, I remember.
We had the very first video game in Manchester, and it was Space Invaders.
Oh God, that was big.
Yeah.
But now it
black and white.
It wasn't as big over here as it was in other countries.
Yeah. But it was in black
that
and
was.
white. And then the big fancy one we got was Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Both these were console
Yeah, I remember
style.
the Pac-Man.
Asteroids,
And then
I think,
after
was my
Pac-Man
favorite.
Came Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah.
But you know, by the time we had Pac-Man, there was a bunch of video games here in town. As a matter of fact, there was actually game rooms that had nothing but video games that done really well for years.
Right, and they started putting them in the malls, you know, to keep the kids entertained while the parents shopped.
Down at Northgate Mall, I remember that was one of the first ones that I remember that had
The fun tunnel.
fun tunnel. Mm-hmm. And then at the airports, they started having video games at airports. So video games that's a big revenue source.
Yes, especially today, you know. They're on the 8th generation of the console games, and by console games, I mean, you know, like the Xboxes and the Nintendos, you know, the Wii's and stuff like that.
Do you know what the first one was that that they sold for kids to buy at Christmas time?
Well, in '75, Magnavox, they reduced the parts count on the Odyssey because there was a new 3 chipset that was created by Texas Instruments, so they could bring the price down on those. But it was only like the ball and the paddle games, like the Pong.
Simple.
And I remember that game. Mm-hmm. I think
it had the noise to it too, like when the ball would hit the paddle.
Bump, bump. Yeah, impossible to do, you know, with the.
He sounded just like that, didn't he?
Now, but that's about the time that Atari entered the market.
Yeah.
And Atari, you know, they got to be a big company.
Yeah.
They entered the consumer market that same year with the single chip home Pong system, and it was designed by Harold Lee. Now the next year, General Instruments released a Pong on a chip and made it available at a low price to any interested company, which now that means that they just created a chip and they would sell it to any company that wanted to put it on their game.
Yeah.
Later on, you know, they started making the cartridges was actually a CD-ROM that you could plug into a little console,
right, and
then play different games instead of one game. And nowadays they're programmable. They're actually, and you know, you can play people all over the world.
Well, they do play. I think Brian, I know he plays And Philip said he's played all over the world. He said they actually type in French when they was talking.
Yeah.
Now, Keith, how much time we got?
About 3 minutes.
Okay, well let me, if you don't care, Ronnie, let me give you a few prices on some of these video games.
Okay, you go ahead, and I've got a couple right here. I've got a Mrs. Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Now, and this one sold. Now, I don't think that the Mrs. Pac-Man would be worth as much as the Pac-Man would be. But this was a tabletop model, and it brought $750. And then we had a restored Mrs. Pac-Man arcade machine. And, of course, it had been upgraded. It brought $1,200. But
Well, here's a vintage early Super Chex bubble hockey arcade game. You know, that's the one where the players.
right.
But what makes this invaluable is it's the USA versus Russia, and that thing brought $2,000.
That's a lot of money for that type of game.
All right, let's see here. Here's a smoke arcade shooting game. It brought $1,392 with 23 bids. You know, it's actual like a gun. And,
Yes, huh?
okay, and then here's a centipede game. It's an upright, you know, not a set down.
I remember the centipedes.
$1,200. Let's see what else we can find here. Here's a Galaga, Pac-Man, and it's got several others on it. It brought $900.
Oh, that had more than one game on it?
Well, here's a Pac-Man. This is upright now, not.
That would have been
not
an right.
and evidently the console brings more. This had 33 bids, brought $510. Let's see what else we can find here. 1 minute.
1 minute, 2 minutes.
All right. Now here's a Donkey Kong, and that's going to wind us up.
Everybody's going to know Donkey Kong.
Yeah, everybody knows Donkey Kong. It's an upright unit, and it brought $1,000. With that, we're going to have to get out of here. Well, I'll tell you what you've done. You've talked this whole show. I mean, we're out of time.
Now, how do we do that?
Up here,
Yeah.
I have some draw.
Talk-